In the first of our 3-part documentary into Mica, we speak to families whose lives are being ripped apart by a national scandal. They tell us how they feel they are screaming at the top of their lungs and that the government is willfully ignoring their calls for help. Families say that the Mica redress bill will leave thousands of families looking for tens of thousands of euros each that they cannot access as banks will not lend to them. They also tell us that people are suicidal because their homes are falling apart in front of their very eyes. So what is mica? Micas are minerals found in blocks excavated in quarries and used in the construction of homes. These were bought by builders and homeowners and used in good faith to build family homes. Mica is causing thousands of homes in Ireland to crumble in the hands of their owners. External walls attract moisture into the blocks. Outside walls are the first to fall, but internal walls are by no means immune. It means that children and parents sleep in rooms unfit for habitation. How would you feel if this was your home, saved for and bought in good faith? In this series, we let the stories of the Mica families speak for themselves. In the first episode, we speak to Paddy Diver. Paddy is a Mica homeowner and vocal advocate for thousands of Irish citizens who are staring down the barrel of homelessness.
Mica's nearly destroyed my life. The sad thing about this is, seems to be the mental health side of stuff is just crazy. I tried to block it out for a long time until I couldn't no more, because all I ever want to do is own my own home and have a secure house for my family. And I have 2 houses. The 2 of them's destroyed in Mica. The 2 of them's going to have to come down to the ground. And the government's, they've turned their back on the people. It feels like they've turned it into them against us. It shouldn't be like that. It should be, it's their fault. They've given all the warning signs in 2017. Even Leo Varadkar was given all the paperwork. And they continued to spend money on public buildings and let the manufacturers keep supplying until it got to a colossal amount of money, that then they come out and they try to turn the public against each other by saying the taxpayers can't pay this. But the problem that I have with that is, if they would have listened to the start, it wouldn't have came to this stage. We wouldn't be stuck with this bill, and more people wouldn't be tortured with it. They come out and they do this big spiel, this big headline. They say, "Oh, we're in talks with the banks." They're not in talks with the banks. My mortgage, I've stopped paying my mortgage in one of my houses, and already they've sent it on to a vulture fund. My second home has no mortgage, and I have to watch head crumbling to the ground. My daughter, she's lying won't even sleep in her own room because she doesn't feel safe. And they just keep turning out big spiels that, it's okay, they're getting 420,000. They're not. There's only a small minority of the people, the mansions that they try to portray. But the average size houses are never getting 420,000 to build their house. They actually won't have enough to build their house. There's a shortfall even in this new scheme. It's all different because of square foot rates, but there's a shortfall of, to me, maybe 70,000. I don't know where I'm going to get 70,000. And what about the pensioners? On their last rollout of their life, they should be looking after their garden and all the rest. I know people that they've broken, that they've completely mentally had breakdowns. They can't work no more. They can't even do their garden work. They've no way of getting any money through banks or anything to get their houses fixed. There's people, the story is just so sad, and to think of a government that can help. They've made plenty of mistakes before. The Children's Hospital cost 2 billion. Over what it was. Then they betrayed it to the public then that, we're giving them 2.7 billion. That's 4 counties. And that's over a 10-year period. They turn it into them against us, and they put out these big pictures. But they're not seeing the moral side of it, the humanity side of it. It's this is a crisis. This is one of the biggest crises ever hit Ireland. And it's heartbreaking to see people and talk to them out on shops. And there's been suicides. I've thought of it myself. My family's destroyed with it. There's 3 of my sisters have it. I have 2 brothers have it. My mother has passed away now, and it's nearly glad to see that she hasn't seen this, because she'd been heartbroken to think that all her children that owned their own house now have to toss them all down again. It's just soul destroying, so it is. It shouldn't happen. And there's other parents out there and they're watching their children, it's breaking them. It's a heartbreaking story, and the government have not done the right thing by the people, but they're known for it. Through all the situations in Ireland, through the mothers and babies, through Stardust, and they never do right by the people, especially this government past and present. It really is time for change, like, there's no two ways about it. This should not, any government goes into power, goes in, and all the people vote them in for it, is to do right by the people. And all we've seen has been delays, like, they did not help at all. The homeowners done most of the work here, never forget it. And they actually tried to turn the public against homeowners. Like, anybody that's got a soul or any kind of morals, you wouldn't wish this on your worst enemy. And then they try and turn it into taxpayers. But the biggest problem is, it could still be happening today. And it's starting to come down the way down around the west coast. Mayo's in it, Tipperary's in it, Sligo's in it. They reckon there could be another 14 counties in it. That's just heartbreaking. But like, the problem that I have with the government at the minute in this scheme is, I work in construction. You have a plan on a Monday morning. Everybody knows their job and it needs to be done by a Friday. It's the same as a restaurant. You've got the waiter, you've got the waitresses, you've got the cleaner, everything goes. This government has no plan for the scheme, no rollout, no structure. Like, everybody's still in limbo. It's an absolute disgrace. They're actually trying to hold back by not giving the extra money on the foundations. There's houses that the foundations are crumbling away. Then there's going to be another scheme, another campaign. People don't want to be campaigning for the sake of campaigning. People are tired. People just want their lives back to normal. And we need the government's help to get it back to normal. And if it's not the past and present, if they don't step up, well, if it's time for change, and if Sinn Féin get in, well, Sinn Féin have promised that they're going to look after the middle class, look after the ordinary people, and stop us here from happening in the future. Well, if it takes that stage in 2 years' time when the government's put out and Sinn Féin come in, then they will have to stand up to their word, or if they're not, there will be another massive campaign. The campaign's never going to stop, so it's not. There'll be more and more counties involved, and they'll all interact, and they have to get it right. 100%, I do believe if this was happening in Dublin, that they would be getting 100%, and rightly so, because when the pyrite hit Dublin, they got 100%. I know a girl called and she was taken out of her house and she was moved up the road to a new house. Her rent was paid until the house was fixed. This is a fact, and rightly so. Us in Donegal, before we started this campaign, we were told to go and live in a caravan. So anybody could live in a caravan. Your children were watching your house being crumbling down. It shouldn't happen. It destroys people's mental health. And yes, I do believe that the people in Dublin think that Ireland's called Dublin. It's not. Ireland's called Ireland. And rural areas in Ireland are being overlooked. They're letting quarries get away with not being regulated. And they've promised that they'd get whatever thing would you see would cost 2.7 billion and no public inquiry. It doesn't even make sense. Minister of Housing Darragh O'Brien can come out with these big headlines, goes on the papers and say, somebody will be held accountable for this here, we're going to go after the manufacturers. Never happened. We're in talks with the banks. No, there's nobody in talks with the banks. Like, if the government said, right, we're going to cap it at this here, but it's the bank's asset, so the banks are going to have to step up to the plate here and come up with a plan. Do you know what I mean? Make up the rest of the shortfall. But no, it's just left the homeowners just being pushed to breaking point. It's just heartbreaking. Tens of thousands of people is going to be a shortfall. There's all different circumstances. You've got a 1,000 square foot house, you've a 3-bedroom house, you've got Donegal, because we're in rural areas and it's not as expensive. We would have houses at 2,400 square foot. I think it's around the average. Them average houses could be 80,000 shortfall, and it's just not right. And there's no way of getting it because the banks won't give it. You had a certain age, you have no income, you can't get it. Drinking to numb the pain, and I know women was drinking wine to numb the pain, and men was drinking too much drink, and then it turned to alcohol, and it's just not right. There's nowhere to go, there's no hub to go. They push you to the limit, and paperwork that you have to give you 160 pages, then you have to turn stuff into a PDF, and then you have to get further information, and it's just constant. There's not even a place to take the mental health side out of it that you can walk in and say, listen, I need help here. There's nowhere even like that. It's just, they've more or less, they just want to break them and bury their heads in the sand and hope it goes away. It's not going away, but it is sad to say it, but it's like, it's the strongest will survive here. And it's breaking people. I know people was in this campaign and were big advocates of the campaign, and they were brilliant. We needed them, and we still need more new ones. But as it goes on, it broke them. The last thing they want to do is talk about Mica. We went to our houses before, and they says they couldn't talk about Mica no more. It's just, it's not just a house, it's bricks and mortar. The way the climate is this minute, the way the government has turned, well, look at the mess of the country as it is. They just don't look after the people. And like even as today, there's quarries not being regulated. It's still happening today. Even one of the TDs said in the Dáil, this is happening today. We brought over a world leading expert, and he told them to look into different sulfide materials. They says no. We got delays after delays after delays, and then they turned around then and said that they weren't going to scrutinise it. Like that means go over with a fine comb. No, they rushed that through in the Dáil. We went down to try and stop it. No, they wouldn't have stopped it. Like, you wouldn't hear tell of it. For me, as a middle-aged person, I can try and work through it, but I would love to think that the government, why would they not be bringing up the housing agency to do what they done in Dublin? Move you out of their house, put you into a modular home or whatever it takes, and put you back in 12 months. There's no structure, there's no common sense being used at all. Like, that's just like everybody to their own. And then they won't even let us self-build. Like, what's the difference on somebody self-building their house? You're still getting it signed off by an engineer as it goes. You could make that work. But with contractors' prices now, there's not enough contractors in Donegal. And the prices are going through the roof between materials and men's wages and all the rest. So you can't even try and make it work by pulling in families and stuff like that. Like, they're good craftsmen. An engineer can sign stuff off. But I just think that there's just going to be too much of a shortfall. That some houses, somebody will be killed. Like, I really do. I do believe it. Like, even the emergency money that they're trying to say that emergency money to fix a house, people have to get a loan to get it. There's some people that can't get a loan. You know, it doesn't make sense.